people in America fear their government, and the government is being run by too many powerful agencies like the IRS and others. I think it's time that people take the country back through their representative government.
Hey, Mr. Politician, living on that hill, living in that lap of luxury on we the people's bill. Don't have a clue how the other half lives, and that is a shame. It's time to stop the tyranny. You keep pushing through your bills. Going for revolution, going for it now. It's time to save our Constitution while we still got the guns in our hands.
Welcome back to Freedom TV. We're having a series of clips tonight of people who have been on the program before, and the next one was one of the most entertaining people that has been on the program. Her name is Emily Wisteria, and she and a group of friends came up with an incredible idea. They decided to turn the garage on their property into a place where people could come and create art. It's called Community Art Garage, and I think you'll find her both fascinating and entertaining. Hi, welcome back to Freedom TV. I'm Renee Kimball, and today my guest is Emily Wisteria, and we're going to be talking about Community Garage Arts.
Thanks for having me here, Renee.
I'm really glad you could come because I heard about this a couple weeks ago, and I was fascinated by this. It seems to be, my impression anyway, is it's a garage where all kinds of crazy things happen.
Yes.
And it sounds wonderful.
Yes.
Tell me, how did this all start? The idea of having a garage to do all these fascinating things in?
Well, we, for several years, have had a garage that's just been piling up with stuff and a dream of creating a studio space where people can come together and share skills and learn from one another, inspire one another, and collaborate creatively together. And only this year have we actually been able to make that a reality through the efforts of over 150 volunteers.
Really? That's incredible.
A lot of hard work and hard play and all kinds of things have gone into it. And it's been really beautiful to see how it's taken off.
Right. So you actually, this is the first year that it's actually kind of been in production?
Yes.
Oh, excellent.
We had our grand opening in August on 8/8/8.
8/8/8.
And I think that it was an auspicious date to start something that really has such long-term effects and so much potential to bring people of all walks of life together. And previous to the opening party, we had a lot of work and a lot of skill sharing and classes and collaboration happening through our building process. We used natural building techniques to renovate the space and insulate the walls.
Excellent.
We collaborated with City Repair, a local Portland organization that does a yearly natural building conference in May.
Right.
So this is a free event where different community projects happen, and the Community Arts Garage was one of those projects.
Excellent.
So we opened our doors for 10 days and had basically free natural building classes and hands-on work parties where people were able to come and play with mud and mix up mud and straw and create a space that is just beautiful and really serves our needs.
Excellent. Well, I know we've got a few pictures that I'd like to share, and it does describe some of the things that you were talking about. So if we can go to our first picture, this is
This is one of the work party days during the
Okay.
Village Building Convergence, and as you see, we had a full house.
Literally.
A lot of people just stopping by to learn some of the basics about natural building. We used a technique called light straw clay, which is basically just straw that's lightly coated in clay slip,
Oh,
which was
okay.
actually just a local soil. We have clay soils here in the area,
Right.
and we were able to fully insulate the walls with this
Oh,
light
okay.
straw clay mixture.
I think we have some of those coming up, actually. So let's go to the next one, and we'll see where. Okay. Here we are.
So this is a process,
in mud.
yeah, of screening out the rocks from the dirt that we used. And it's really fun work. Everyone who was involved was able to just jump right in, no matter what their level of experience
I don't know
was.
anyone who doesn't like playing in the mud. It's fun.
Oh,
And
yeah.
So this is the straw part.
This is the straw, building it into the walls. Very festive. We had dress-up days and live music, and
Cool.
children as well as grandparents and everyone in between.
And the next one I think is the actual putting on. What happened to our?
This is one of our open studios. We have at least once a week, often twice a week, open studios where we open up the garage door and we invite people to just come in. And right now we're focusing on pottery. So we have a pottery wheel and a kiln, and
Right.
we offer clay and some instruction to people. And it's just really fun to see what people come up with. And often people show up thinking they'll be learning from some expert, and what actually ends up happening is they share their own knowledge.
Right.
And they become a sort of an expert. So this is another open studio type craft making class that we had. And you'll see in the back, there's a mural that was done through creative collaboration during the VBC, and it's also using natural materials and natural pigments.
Excellent.
So that was really great process and adds a lot to the space.
This is the kiln and some
Yeah,
projects on
this
the wall.
is during our grand opening, we had an art show that was curated by SCRAP, the School Community Reuse Action Project, which we're very close to and collaborate with a lot. So they had a variety of artists submit pieces that were reusing materials. And most of the building materials that we did end up using were also reused.
Right.
And this is another part of that same art show.
And these are actually fashions, wearable things, wearable
Yes,
art.
wearable art out of all reused materials.
Excellent. Oh, some entertaining little outfits there.
And this is another picture from our grand opening celebration. This is the tea horse that City Repair brings out to different events, and it's a mobile tea lounge, and it's free to anybody and really creates a lot
And
of
it's a lot
good
of
sense
fun.
of community.
Yeah, I've seen the Tea Horse around town and participated in some of the things they do, and they just throw out all the cushions and you just kind of lounge about. And juggling, my personal favorite. This is great.
We had a circus skills class where all kinds of people came with their toys, and we played, we learned how to juggle. We have a lot of neighborhood kids who love to come and see what we're up to and learn some of the things that we're sharing. So that was really great.
Oh, there's some real jugglers.
Some more from the circus skills.
Excellent. And I think we've got a couple more.
Yeah, this is from our grand opening celebration as well. Just really fun. We had probably about 200 people come
Really?
out. We had 5 live bands, lots of free food. The art show, as I mentioned, the Tea Horse. It was a really great way to bring the community together. A lot of people just stopped by, and that was the first time they heard of
Really?
what we were doing.
Excellent. Wow, those are excellent little samples of what the community garage. I keep wanting to say arts garage.
It is the Arts Garage.
Yeah, okay.
The Community Arts Garage. And we've sort of looked at the name as an evolving concept, and sort of the difference of art versus craft, and how so many people perceive art as sort of an elitist activity,
yeah.
and maybe don't include themselves in something that is called art. You know, many people don't identify as artists and feel that that's sort of something that they can't attain. And so the reason we chose community arts is because we're really focusing on building community and building a sense of possibility and empowerment through art. Because life is art, and everything we do is art. And we don't restrict our classes to arts and crafts subject areas.
So you do all kinds of different types of things.
All kinds of things.
What are some of the other things that you do besides?
Well, we have a singing group that's happening. I guess that is sort of a type of art. But we have a lot of different discussion groups that happen as well. Right now we have a group that meets on Sundays that is an alternative to AA, and is a support group for people who want to live a sober life. We have gender identity discussion groups and all kinds of things. So it's really open for people to step up and say, this is something I want to learn, or this is some skill or subject area I have some expertise in.
And so you do rely on people contacting you and saying, hey, I've got this I can do and I can share and I can show people how to do. So that's an opportunity for people to share what they can do. That's interesting.
Yes, and it's an open invitation. If people are interested in teaching a group or teaching a class or holding a discussion group and sharing some knowledge, or perhaps you have a subject area that you want to learn more about, hold a group. And you know, collaboratively, we will learn.
Excellent.
And there are enough resources out there. You know.
You know, there's a subject that most people don't like to talk about. Everybody wants to talk about eating and sleeping and all kinds of other activities, but the last activity of the day before you go to bed, nobody wants to talk about, except Ole Erson. And he's come up with a great idea. Actually, Ole didn't come up with it, but he certainly perfected the idea here in Portland. So we're going to have our next clip is about Ole Erson and an interesting area called humanure. And I'm very glad you could join us, Ole, for today and give us some information about a subject that's, well, it's a delicate subject sometimes for people, but it's a very important subject because I don't think there's anybody on the face of the planet who doesn't poop. And eventually we're going to have to find some way of doing it. So tell us a little bit about humanure.
Okay, thank you for inviting me, Renee. To put things in perspective, I want us to take a bigger picture. So for a moment, I want to talk about permaculture. Permaculture, or permanent agriculture, is a design science whereby we create human settlements that are modeled after natural ecosystems. And in natural ecosystems, there's no such thing as waste. What we normally think of waste from one process is actually food for another system or another process. And if we take this very fundamental principle of permaculture, and in particular organic gardening, we can apply it to our own lives and start to recycle our own excrement. When we do this, we discover that it's not such a big problem that needs to be solved. It's something we can all do in our own personal lives if we so choose, and we can create nutrients out of what most people think of as waste.
So there's actually no such thing as waste, just unused byproducts that are looking for a system and to kind of hook into. Now I understand this is composting human manure. What's the difference between this and just digging a pit, like a pit latrine or an outhouse? What's the difference between those two things?
There's a world of difference between privies or latrines and composting your excrement in a bucket composting toilet system. In the privy system, nutrients are lost. It's a simple system that anyone can create. But it doesn't have the advantage of recycling your nutrients. In addition, it's not very aesthetic. Anybody who's used a privy has probably been turned off by the odors and so forth. So there are some fundamental differences
Right,
between
so
the
the-
two systems.
And then how about a septic tank? Is that just another sort of area out there, or does that do any composting itself, or is it really just kind of another
No,
system?
it actually doesn't. So let's talk for a moment about sewage processing or waste processing as it exists in America, which is a
Okay.
typical third world country. So in America, if you want to create a dwelling, you need to get a building permit. And typically the building authorities require you to connect to a legal sewage processing system.
Right.
So in a city, that typically is the centralized sewage system, the municipal sewage system. If you're out in the country and you don't have a centralized system available, then usually you're required to install what's called a septic system, which consists of the same appliance, a flush toilet, which flushes your waste into a receptacle where it gradually degrades and the nutrients are all lost. Unfortunately, in that process, as well as the central sewage system process, the nutrients are not only lost, but they create huge amounts of pollution. So
really?
with a septic system, you pollute the groundwater or your local aquifer. In a centralized sewage system, for example, in the city of Portland, the water that is discharged from the sewage system ends up going into the rivers, polluting the rivers. Now, if the system of processing were perfect and all of the what potentially are nutrients
right.
were removed, there would be minimal pollution. Unfortunately, the system is not perfect, and a lot of the nutrients pass through the process unchanged and end up as pollutants rather than nutrients, which is what happens in a composting system.
Right, exactly. And then even here in Portland with the combined sewer overflow that we currently have now, sometimes when it rains, you'll have raw sewage going straight into the river. It doesn't even get the opportunity to sort of sit out for a while and calm down.
That's
So-
exactly true, and that is despite enormous, mind-boggling expenditures.
I know.
The city of Portland, the investment in our centralized sewer infrastructure is in probably the tens of billions in current dollars.
Right.
And despite that, our system still fails a large percentage of the time, particularly in winter when we have large rain events, we have raw sewage going into the rivers.
Oh, that's incredible.
Okay.
That's
Now the
really
same
amazing.
thing is true in septic systems
Right.
where you live in the country.
Okay. So
Pollution occurs there also on a routine basis. In fact, they're programmed, the systems are programmed to discharge effluent into the ground, which thereby contaminates
Ew.
the local water aquifer.
oh my God. So is this very old, or is this kind of a new sort of rendition of something that has been done in the past and was forgotten, or is this sort of a
Human
new?
manure composting is really it's a new idea. It's probably less than 20 or 30
Really?
years old. Yes, it really is new. Now, the natural decomposition of excrement, of course, has
Yeah,
occurred
well, yeah.
in natural systems since time immemorial.
Right.
But the concerted approach to composting your excrement in a sanitary and environmentally appropriate fashion is probably just a few decades old.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. I would have thought, well, they've rediscovered this new thing that they have been using for thousands of years. But again, this is the evolution of our thinking as to how to deal with our own excrement. Now, I know this is a composting system. How does what you're doing differ from I've seen like composting toilets you can buy on the internet?
Good question. I have an analogy that I make where I talk about our current sewage system as a Hummer. If you think of that as a Hummer, it's a gas-guzzling monster vehicle that is inappropriate in today's times. Centralized sewage systems have the same problem. They are not really appropriate ecologically for our times. I compare that to commercially available composting systems. They're like a Prius. In other words, it's a great principle, but it's very high-tech. The systems are complicated. You need professional mechanics to maintain your Prius.
really?
You can't do it
Yeah,
yourself.
And the
Okay.
same thing with your composting, your professional composting toilet. That I imagine that's the same
Yes,
problem.
they're expensive, they're complicated, they need mechanics, composting toilet mechanics to make sure that they're operating. Finally, the final analogy is the composting system that we're talking about today, or the bucket toilet system, coupled with a composting area in your garden, is like a bicycle. So which
Right.
do you want? Do you want to ride your bike, or do you want to use a Hummer?
Yeah.
Or are you going to take the middle approach, which is a Prius? They probably all have their appropriate roles, but I think most of us are tending to realize that we need more systems like bicycles and
Exactly.
fewer systems like
Exactly.
Hummers.
Now, is this done here, or is this is it just done in the United States, or are there places around the world where
This
this
can
is
be
starting
done.
to happen?
This can be done anywhere because the implements to do it cost just a few dollars.
Oh, right.
A system costs $5 to $10. It's a perfect complement to organic gardening and farming, and it's appropriate anywhere on the planet. Now, probably in polar areas where you're not gardening, it
Right.
wouldn't be an appropriate
Right.
system. But for the most part, it's practical all over the planet.
Great. Well, we've got some pictures of the system that you're talking about. So if we can start bringing up a few of those pictures, we can look at exactly what the bits and pieces of the system
Great.
are. Like you said, it's very, very simple. It's very straightforward. You don't need a whole bunch of high-techy things and a lot of expense. And the first picture shows just the things that you need to actually make it happen. Do we have the photograph coming up? All righty. It'll be coming up shortly. In the meantime, I'll wait until it comes up, but I've got another couple of questions for you. Now, the system is composting, right? Now, how does this work as far as the, oh, here we go. We've got the if you can describe some of those
So
guys for us.
these pictures here show the tools that you need, basically a screwdriver and a saw,
Whoa.
a couple of 5-gallon plastic buckets, which are easily available in the urban waste stream, some screws, and some small pieces of wood. There's also a standard toilet seat. And what you do, it takes about an hour to make one of these.
Really?
You cut off one end of one of the buckets, and that creates a section of bucket that slips inside the other. To that, you secure your toilet seat. And now you have a toilet
Oh,
seat
right.
that can be easily transferred from
Right.
one bucket to another.
Exactly.
Very, very simple.
Okay.
And then that allows you to use additional buckets,
Right.
one or
You
more
can just
buckets,
keep-
as your collection devices. And the toilet seat with its flange, which is part of another bucket, allows you to move the seat between buckets.
Excellent.
Okay, the cost of this system is well less than $10. You're really only item that you generally would purchase would be the toilet seat itself.
Right.
The other items are pennies a
Yeah,
piece.
you can get them anywhere. Okay, can we have the next CG coming up? I think it goes on and shows the bucket all put together. And we can have a look at that and see how it looks all together. There you go, a little dunny. How about that?
One of the virtues of a system like this is it mimics a conventional toilet. So
Right,
people
exactly.
know how to use it.
Yeah.
There's no
Where's the handle of
squatting or
flush?
anything else, exactly, besides the flush and the water. Another advantage is because there's no water required, you can put one of these anywhere.
Anywhere, exactly.
Plumbing is not
Exactly.
required. All you need is a few square feet of space to set up a system like this.
Excellent. I think we've got 2 more slides coming up that show you the kind of finishing off products of what happens. We've got the one of them is the what you do with the bucket, because obviously you have the bucket there. And then, okay, we've got this, and what's she doing there with what's she putting in the bucket
Okay,
itself?
so what you have now is a bucket with a toilet seat on it. This is where you use your toilet. You put your excrement in this bucket. In addition, you can put any household compostables, such as vegetable scraps and
Oh,
so
really?
forth, right?
Okay.
Toilet paper can also go in this. Okay, after you've made any additions to the bucket, you add a second ingredient, sawdust or wood chips. That's why this is often called the sawdust toilet.
Oh, okay. I was
Any sort
wondering
of
about
high
that.
carbon material
Okay.
balances the high nitrogen excrement and vegetable scraps that are put in. So you
Right.
get a perfect mixture to
Right.
compost in your compost.
Exactly. And then the second picture was the actual composting sections, like
Yes.
you would compost it like you would do normal composting.
Yes, and this is something that any organic gardener will be familiar with.
Right.
It's a
Okay.
composting system where you recycle your yard debris and your
Right.
kitchen scraps and so forth. This is just another compostable item that's composted in that fashion.
Right. So can you mix this in with your normal composting?
Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely.
Okay.
In fact, the high nitrogen inputs from manures and urine allow us to compost many things that normally we wouldn't be able to compost. A lot of people, when they have prunings from their trees, for example, holly is a very
Oh, yeah.
resistant to composting. But if you have high nitrogen inputs like this, you can compost virtually anything.
Oh, excellent. Well, that's incredible. Now, I know you've been doing this a long time. We just have a couple minutes before we have to go to a break. But I know you raised your kids doing this. How did that happen? And then afterwards, did they continue doing it? Have they continued doing it? I mean,
Okay.
tell me about growing up.
Good question. Our
composting.
kids grew up with this, so for them it was not there wasn't a transition.
Right.
There was no mental block to this. They grew up with it, and it's very similar to a conventional toilet in any fashion. Do they still do it? Whenever they visit us, they do. They use our system, of course, and we encourage that. You do need a composting. It's a system.
Yeah.
The bucket itself is simply the collection receptacle.
Right.
So you could ask me the same question: do our kids compost their vegetable scraps? If they don't have a compost pile
Yeah.
available, they can't do that.
Exactly.
We always have that where we live,
Right.
so we're able to do that.
So it really requires you having some sort of space where you can actually do this
Absolutely.
composting.
It's essential to have a composting area.
Right. Okay, I've got one more question for you before we go, and this is a really quick one. Now, I know that it started here in Portland. Can you estimate about how many people have actually started doing this here in Portland? Do you have any idea?
I know probably a couple dozen people
Really?
who are doing it.
Excellent.
Yes, right. And I've given sessions, many sessions where I've explained to people how to do this. I've showed them our system, and I've been surprised that many people were already doing it.
Oh,
Actually,
really?
I've attended natural building conferences when I put on a presentation. Sometime during the presentation, I'll ask how many people are actually doing this, and in certain circles of people who are interested in alternative technologies, it's typically a third to two-thirds of people
Really?
are already doing this.
Oh, that's incredible. Well, you know, there's an old saying that an armed society is a polite society. I don't know about society, but there have been certain times in my life that I have felt a whole lot safer because I knew somebody standing around me actually was wearing a gun. Our next clip is about a gentleman who knows a lot about the subject and also is very good at training people to learn more for their own personal protection. This is Paul Meir, and he's going to be talking to us a little bit about guns, how it works, how it doesn't work, and self-protection. So this is Paul Meir and guns and self-protection. I hope you enjoyed that segment. And now we're going to get right to our special guest. This is Peter. I'm doing so well today.
Peter Paul.
Rented lips. Paul Meir, and he is an NRA instructor in 5 disciplines, an active USPSA shooter, chief range officer and trainer, and Paul's been doing a ladies' night, a special ladies' night for learning how to handle guns and to shoot. He's been doing that for 6 years at a special range in the South here. And he does teach both private and group lessons. He also holds an Oregon and Utah concealed carry permit. Thanks very much for joining us, Paul. I really appreciate you being here and bringing some toys for us to look at, learn about.
That's it.
And find out some real information about guns instead of a lot of the things that people assume they know or they hear from somebody else, usually people who don't shoot. So
Usually off of TV.
usually off of TV. And as I have learned, the TV Law and Order shows don't really know what they're doing.
Right.
So let's get into some real stuff about guns and shooting. Now, first, can you tell me that I know there's like different classes of guns, different sort of ways you can use guns. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, let's start out with just what stuff we've got here on the table. A lot of this stuff started out as hunting stuff. It's got a large rifle with a scope on it there in the front. The shotgun, of course, This shotgun has a lot of stuff for me.
Right.
In that I bought this when I was about 12 or 13 after mowing lawns and working out in the fields.
Really?
So
Now,
it's been around a long time.
The shotgun is the one that uses the big shell, right? And it's sort of.
It's got full of BBs in the top.
Oh, right. Okay.
And
So that one is.
its job is to splatter out, open up.
Right. So it's not. If you really want pinpoint accuracy, this is not the
a
gun you
real
would be
yeah,
using.
not a real target
Okay.
gun.
But as for something like, you know, if you wanted safety and you didn't want to have to think too much about aiming where you were shooting at, that might be the gun.
A lot of instructors recommend them for in the house. They're a little shorter barrel, a little easier to handle.
Right.
You can get loads that. The biggest concern you have about in the house is rounds leaving the house. So
Right. Exactly.
if you get the right shells in the shotgun, it cuts down on that probability.
Right. Because it's going to aim out rather than long distance.
Yeah, but it's still within the distance of a house. It's only going to be your pattern's only. It opens up fairly slow. People
does
don't.
it? Oh, okay.
People seem to think a shotgun.
Is, you know, you
Yeah.
can blast a wall
40
from
yards.
4 feet. Yeah.
This shotgun right here at 40 yards has a pattern about 3 feet in diameter.
Oh, 40 yards.
Yeah.
Okay. That's quite a bit different than what I
Yeah.
thought.
So say 7, 8 yards across a room, you're still.
You're still fairly small
real
and
tight.
contained.
That's
So it's not, okay, well, that's quite a bit different than what I've been led to believe about shotguns. And it certainly is not what you see on TV. It seems like you can shoot a whole wall from 5 feet away. Now, what other kinds of different types do we have here?
Let me grab the rifle here without knocking everything over. This is a large game hunting rifle.
So that would be for like deer or elk, bear.
anything in
Can
that
you
area,
shoot
yeah.
bear with that?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, moose. Little difficult to handle for self-protection.
Yeah.
I mean, it would work, but it's not the most convenient.
Well, I certainly wouldn't want to be stuck in a hallway trying to wield that around.
And with a scope like this, you know, even on the lowest power, you're not going to be able to detect what's there.
You're not going to be able to see it. So you
Right.
really wouldn't want something like this for self-protection at all. That's basically pretty much a hunting gun
Yes.
then? Okay. All right,
Hunting,
then.
target shooting, that type of stuff.
Right.
All those guns double up, so you can have fun.
So you could use it like for competition
Mm-hmm.
also? They have like competitions? I know in the Olympics they have special shooting
Right, they're using
areas.
smaller caliber in this.
Right.
It's a 30 caliber. It's nice,
Pretty good size?
Yeah.
Okay. What's the big, long, dark one here that
Well,
looks...
this is the black gun that you see on TV, or notoriously they'll call it an assault weapon, which it isn't. It doesn't meet the criteria for that. I call it the, this is my utility house gun.
utility house gun. Okay.
And, these started out as military weapons. This is an AR-15.
Okay, so this is sort of like what they used during Vietnam. They used
Started in
ARs,
Vietnam
didn't?
as
Yeah.
a
Okay.
M16.
Right.
M16 is full auto. This is a civilian model. It's semi-auto. One round at a time.
One
Self-feeding, but one round at a time.
Right. And now, how many rounds would you hold having a gun like this?
This will hold up to, with a mag like this, we'll take up to 30 rounds.
Okay, so this is what you
This fits
fill
in the
that
hole.
up with the bullets,
Right.
and then it sticks in the gun,
Right.
and then you can take that out and put a new one in.
Right.
We've all seen that on TV, but that's pretty much
Yeah.
an all-around gun.
The
for-
civilian market has taken these and used them for gaming and whatnot, and customized them and made them extremely accurate now.
Oh, really?
This will
Okay.
shoot a half-inch group at 100 yards.
Wow. So and a half-inch group, you mean like at a target, everything is together in a half-inch
There you go.
at 100 yards.
At 100 yards.
Whoa, that's pretty accurate.
Yeah,
So that's
a little surprising.
yeah. I would not have believed that a gun that powerful or a semi-automatic could be that accurate.
That's why it's disturbing when you see it on TV that they're always showing it as this is an assault weapon.
Right.
First of all, someone trying to hold you up or whatnot would probably not use one of these.
Probably not.
A bad
I
guy,
don't,
you know, this thing loaded weighs 9 pounds. As you can see, it's a little awkward. A
Yeah.
little hard to get down your pants leg like they show on TV.
Yeah. You have seen that. That is
So-
true. Okay.
But they are using these now. Some instructors are coming around and recommending these for personal protection in the home.
Well, you have to kind of keep up with the caliber of what's happening outside the home.
Yeah.
And some of the people who are coming around are, who are going to break down your door are not going to be breaking it down with a .22 handgun.
Right.
So, if you want to meet power with power, then it would be reasonable to have something like that. Okay, what else do we have here? You've got a couple of handguns here. Now, what's the difference in handguns? I know there's two different types. You've got two types here. Tell me which.
This is a revolver.
Cylinder revolves.
Or they call it now a wheel gun.
Wheel gun.
This one holds 6 rounds. This is a .357, or it'll also shoot .38 special. Same cartridge, just the .357 is slightly longer, a little more power.
So a gun can actually shoot more than one kind of
Some of 'em
ammunition.
can. Some
Oh,
of 'em
okay.
can.
I thought that each gun was specifically a particular kind of ammunition. So
No, there are several that will double up.
right.
Then something like this, .357 gives you a lot of recoil, a lot of muzzle flip.
Another way. So the recoil is the pushback that you get from the gun when
Right.
it goes off. Okay.
So for practice, you'd buy the .38 specials.
right.
Doesn't have near the
Right, and that the size of the bullet, the .38 Magnum would be, they would be in size, but they would also be the powder inside. Is that?
Well, the larger the casing,
Oh, okay.
usually the more powder it holds.
Right, and the more powder it holds, the more it's
Higher
going to,
velocity, the more recoil.
the more it's going to kick
These
back
guns
on you.
actually, I shouldn't call it recoil. You get muzzle flip out of them. Other than a huge pistol,
Right.
a 500 or something, 454. The recoil you can anticipate out of most handguns is same as if you were to take a hammer and haul off and hit a board or hit a nail.
Right. So it
That little
bounces a
rattle
little.
back.
Oh, okay.
That's all you get. What you'll get more of is muzzle flip out of
Oh,
them.
okay. So the front of the
Yeah.
muzzle will go up,
Right.
and that'll kind of.
Newton had this saying about energy leaving and energy going.
Right.
It's got to go somewhere, so it works on the axis of the barrel. Flips
Right.
it.
Okay. So that's a revolver,
That's a revolver.
and then the other one you've got here.
This one is a semi-auto. It holds its ammo in a magazine, which is
Okay.
inserted in the handle.
Right.
And each time you fire a round, part of the energy spent from the round pushes a slide back.
Oh, okay. So you don't.
And then it rams
Okay.
another one in. Empty goes out, loaded round goes back
So
in.
when this pulls back, the empty comes shooting out.
Right.
Okay. And then it automatically loads another bullet into the chamber. Oh, okay. So.
That's why you don't want to be standing to the right of someone. You get something hot down your
Oh,
collar.
right. Yeah, that would not be comfortable. So that's involved in gun safety. And to me, that's an important aspect of knowing about guns is probably one of the most important things you can do is know how to use it properly and know where to stand, what to do, what not to do. So again, this with the clip, you've got how many rounds in this clip? This clip will hold
This one for this pistol will hold 17 rounds.
17 rounds as opposed to a revolver, which is limited.
6, yes.
So most revolvers hold about 6.
5 or 6.
5 or 6. Okay, so you really, if you're going to use it for self-defense, you got 6 shots and you're done. And it looks like reloading this one is going to be a lot slower than reloading this one.
Right. You have to spend a lot of time practicing with
Yeah,
that to
and if
get
you're
speed
really
up.
freaked out, I can just see me trying to get the bullets in the
Yeah.
chamber. They're not going to go. So something like this would be much more.
That's one thing they never show on TV is the anxiety level.
Yeah,
Stress. You can't do small things, so
yeah.
you have to practice a lot.
Yeah, trying to get bullets into little chambers when you're really stressed out.
Keys into locks.
Yeah, keys into locks. This would be much more suitable for doing something
And
like
these
that.
are more fun because you can shoot more faster.
Oh, okay. So like when
That's
you
the fun part.
when you're doing target
gaming,
practice,
yeah.
when you're doing the games. Now you mentioned that there were several different kinds of shooting. Now I know about target practice, And we came out to the range a couple weeks ago and saw you shooting. Can you tell me a little bit about what was that? What
Okay.
were we actually looking at? It was
I shoot
people
what's called Practical Pistol.
okay.
Our organization is the U.S. Practical Shooting Association, and we shoot scenarios or what we call stages. You set up a combination of metal and paper targets. Some of the targets
Right.
move. Set up barricades, shooting around barrels, under tables, a little bit of everything.
So it's kind of like a practical, what you might expect to have happen if you were defending
be.
yourself in a situation. Well,
A little bit.
And-
We've gotten away from that to a certain extent, into more of the gaming. It's more of a contest to see how fast you get through it now.
right.
And we shoot for highest score, fastest speed.
Right. Okay.
There's
All right.
another group called IDPA, International Defensive Pistol Association. They're more of the personal protection type game. Stay
Right.
behind the wall, stay behind the barrel.
Right, so that's the difference. This is
Right.
more
Stay out of
hit
ca-
the target
Right.
and move from one position to another
Right.
very quickly. And then the defensive games or practices would be from protecting yourself while you're shooting.
Right.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
We're good at this because the targets don't shoot back.
That would be very useful. So it's a whole different way of shooting if you've got something coming back to
Right.
you. So you wouldn't be.
It does give you good handling though. You handle the gun a lot. You do a lot of mag changes, shooting from different positions. And then someone's holding the clock over your head, so you're shooting against time.
Right.
So there is a stress level build up there.
Right, and that is part of it also,
Yeah.
is if you're going to consider using something like a gun for self-protection, I think it's important to put yourself under that kind of a stress so
Right.
that you know how you're going to react and you know, it's,
Well, the problem people get into, and I keep working on them with, is they come to the range and they shoot in a square range at a target square in front of them.
that's not moving and it sits there. And
Life
it's,
doesn't come at you
Yeah,
in a square
exactly.
box.
Yeah,
You know, if you're going to get in trouble, it's going to be coming from somewhere that you least expect.
right.
So you've got to practice it, shoot from laying down, shooting from sitting down, shooting
Right.
from sitting in a chair,
Right.
all sorts of things.
So you're getting the practical experience of
Yeah.
being prepared.
Look what you do every day in life. That's
That's really, that is how it would be. And you look at situations like Virginia Tech and Columbine and places like that, those people were running for cover and sitting under everything or behind everything. And if any of them had had a gun, there probably would have been a whole heck of a lot more people alive today.
yeah.
Which is unfortunate, but that's the way the culture is at the moment. And to me, it's a matter of getting people to understand exactly what these are, exactly what they're capable of, and exactly how you can use them to defend yourself.
Well, when they've done that, they've turned schools into target-rich environments.
Well, yeah, I mean,
They
you
can't
don't.
run. I mean, it's just
Yeah, and you can't. If you
Shooting
can't
at-
bring a
fishing
gun
at
on
the-
campus to protect yourself, the bad guys, I don't know, but I've never known them to follow the rules. So, if they're going to come on campus with a gun,
man, we've only got what 20-some thousand gun laws, and
Well,
they don't follow them.
well, it's
Something's
they
wrong
don't
there.
think they need to follow them, so they can come on campus without the gun. And unfortunately, the people who are there don't have much to say about it. Now, can you tell me a little bit about ammunition? I know I've seen little bullets and thin bullets and long bullets, and what's the difference between the different kinds of
We've actually got a card
ammunition?
over there that's got that on it. We got the
Okay.
wrong one up. But ammo is broken down into two types, pretty much. Rimfire, which would be you'd relate to a .22,
Okay,
which is just a solid brass base,
okay,
and the other would be primer centerfire. Centerfire has a primer that's inserted into a hole in the bottom of the case that is struck by a mechanism in the gun, and that sets the powder off,
oh, okay,
which builds up pressure, blows out the projectile out the end of the barrel.
right. So which one would be the more powerful round?
Centerfire.
the center fire.
Yeah.
Because it's like a double fire. You're hitting the end of the gun, and then
Yeah.
it's exploding at the same time.
Yeah. We have, oh, let me put this on over here. If you
Okay,
can,
we've got a,
if I can find my dot, and I can't find it.
there we go.
There we go. This is a rimfire. This is a typical 22. Flat base, nothing in there. You notice there's 4 parts to a cartridge. These aren't bullets. These are called cartridges. Okay? The bullet is this part up here.
So the bullet is the part that actually
That's
leaves
the
the gun.
projectile that flies through the
Okay.
air. We have a primer, which sits right there in the bottom. And then a casing, which the primer's inserted into, right in the hole. And it's filled with powder. And then the bullet is set on top. It's kind of like a rocket.
Yeah, like a two-stage rocket.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that explains it. That's
So,
very good.
Center fire, you know, we have to hit the primer, and it takes a pretty good shock to set that off. And it ignites the powder. Rim fire has an ignition liquid that's dried out that's inside the base here. So when you strike the edge of the casing, it ignites the powder.
Oh, okay. So that's the difference. And the second one obviously would be much, much more powerful.
Right, and you can reload it.
Ah, okay. So that's the difference.
There we go.
The single ones you can't reload.
Right.
Oh, okay. So that would be the difference between, because that was another thing I was going to ask you is I know that there are people who reload their ammunition because the price of metal going up, it becomes more sensible to
Right.
reload the brass bottom with powder and with
Right. Well, we reload one for cost savings
right,
because of the volume you shoot,
right,
and 2, you can load for accuracy.
right.
Each one of these firearms will act differently under different loads. So if you can find that sweet spot and get that load, you make the gun talk.
Hi, welcome back to Freedom TV. We're going to do a new little segment here, and this is going to be a contest for some great prizes. And the contest is you're going to be able to name this item. And here's the item. I'll show you what it does. I won't tell you exactly what it does, but this item has a very specific name. I don't want the generic name. I want the actual physical name of this guy. It was made and designed here in Oregon. I'll give you that much of a clue. And I'll give you one more clue. Here you go. Bah! It's wool. Okay, I'll give you a clue, but I need the specific name of this particular item, and I'll show you very quickly what the prize is. You can have your choice, either the DVD, The Secret, or you can have the audio CDs of Ron Paul's book, The Revolution, a Manifesto. Great stuff. So email me, and we'll bring that screen up in just a few seconds, and let me know what you think that thing is, and you can choose one of these 2 prizes.
The Canadian province of Ontario has a population of more than 12.5 million. People there can spend their money on all the best things in life: food, wine, cars, homes, everything, except their own bodies. That's because private health care is outlawed in Ontario. Under their single-payer system, only the government can pay for medically necessary care. But that's okay, say some, because you shouldn't have to worry about money when you need health care. And that makes single-payer systems more compassionate and caring than the partial free market system in the United States. So how compassionate and caring are single-payer healthcare systems?
They don't care how long you wait, you'll get to you sooner or later. But it's free. It's free.
Lindsay McCreath, a retired body shop owner from Newmarket, Ontario, began having headaches and had a seizure in January of 2006. Both he and his doctor suspected a possible brain tumor. He needed an MRI fast. How long was the wait?
4 months before we could get our first MRI here in Ontario.
The McCreaths wanted to pay to get an MRI rather than wait 4 months for the government to provide one. However, Ontario Minister of Health George Smitherman is a staunch defender of a single-payer healthcare system and won't allow private payment for medical services. So in their hour of desperation, the McCreaths called private medical broker Rick Baker.
Bear in mind, if you have a suspected brain tumor, it's really important you find out if in fact you do have a brain tumor, and beyond that it's very important to find out if it's malignant or if it's benign. They were waiting 4.5 months to get this an MRI. Came to us on the 2nd of February of 06. On the 3rd of February they were down in Buffalo. They got an MRI which indeed showed that Lindsay had a brain tumor.
He had a mass in his brain that was the size of a golf ball.
He came back to Canada with his MRI in his hand, went to see his family doctor. He was given a May the 27th date to see a neurosurgeon. Now this is back on the 3rd of February.
I was angry at the waiting of 3 months.
He didn't want to wait till May the 27th, knowing he had a tumor.
So I got on the phone to Timely Medical, Mr. Rick Baker again.
Once again, we went back to Buffalo.
The surgery was scheduled for within a week's time. Our GP said go.
Lindsay McCreath got his brain surgery in the U.S. The results of the biopsy? Cancer. Luckily, a well-contained grade 2 astrocytoma tumor.
If that had been a class 4 astrocytoma tumor, he would not have made it. He would not have lasted 8 months. He would have, in all likelihood, have died. We compressed the whole process from the MRI to the consultation to the biopsy to the surgery in 4.5 weeks. Lindsay's doctor, family doctor of 35 years, Dr. McGee, estimated he might have waited as long as 8 months.
My father passed away a few months before this happened, so we happened to have the money there. But if we hadn't, I would have put a mortgage on a home to go for the surgery across the border rather than wait 6-8 months, which is ridiculous when your life is threatened. You're desperate. You don't know where to turn. You need help and you can't find it anywhere. He found help for us.
Mr. McCreath wants to get his money back. It cost him $28,000. He made an application to the government. He was turned down flat. They said, no, we can't give you your money back. You didn't ask us for permission to leave the country to have your surgery. He knew that the permission process often takes as long as getting the surgery in Canada to begin with, which has been estimated at 8 months. We're going to make an appeal and then an appeal of the appeal. We are putting the government of Ontario on notice that if they do not look favorably on Mr. McCreath's application for a repayment of his $28,000, we are going to take this as far as we have to get justice for our client, even if it means a Supreme Court lawsuit.
In 2005, physician Jacques Chauly and patient George Zeliotis challenged Quebec's ban on private health insurance. Their lawsuit went all the way to the Canadian Supreme Court, and they won. Mr. Baker's lawsuit against Ontario on behalf of the McCreaths may also fare well in the courts. Isn't it ironic that while the Canadian government's monopoly on health care is slowly crumbling in the face of widespread suffering, liberal Democrats in the U.S. are pushing to adopt a system much like the one that has failed so miserably in Canada?
Now, I understand that there is a movement afoot in the U.S. by certain circles to try and duplicate the Canadian system in the U.S., trying to adopt a single payer system in the U.S. Then where will I send my clients? I'll have nowhere to send my clients. Your hospitals will be backed up. You people will be waiting 2 and 3 years for surgeries. I'll have nowhere to send Canadians.
There's something in these pictures you can't see. It's essential to life. We breathe it out. Plants breathe it in. It comes from animal life, the oceans, the earth, and the fuels we find in it. It's called carbon dioxide, CO2. The fuels that produce CO2 have freed us from a world of backbreaking labor, lighting up our lives, allowing us to create and move the things we need, the people we love. Now, some politicians want to label carbon dioxide a pollutant. Imagine if they succeed. What would our lives be like then? Carbon dioxide. They call it pollution. We call it life. You've seen those headlines about global warming. The glaciers are melting. We're doomed. That's what several studies supposedly found. But other scientific studies found exactly the opposite. Greenland's glaciers are growing, not melting. The Antarctic ice sheet is getting thicker, not thinner. Did you see any big headlines about that? Why are they trying to scare us? Global warming alarmists claim the glaciers are melting because of carbon dioxide from the fuels we use. Let's force people to cut back, they say. But we depend on those fuels to grow our food, move our children, light up our lives. And as for carbon dioxide, it isn't smog or smoke. It's what we breathe out and plants breathe in. Carbon dioxide, they call it pollution. We call it life.
You profit where you can. That sounds ridiculous. It's probably not the most moral of things to do.
If you apply that standard to others, it has to be applied to yourself.
I've never owned a share of stock in my life.
That's shocking news to me.
What is he thinking? I'm just shocked. I had no idea.
That is a really big hypocritical action that he did.
Is this forged, sir?
What if we chose our legislators by cockfighting?
I don't even know why you're here.
He's not going to meet with you. Your bird is too tiny.
If we let special interest money determine our elections, we might as well switch to cockfighting.
I cry for my country, for the pain that it's been through. She's been made to suffer for the profit of a few. Storm clouds are forming, winds of change now touch our shores. Our hear forefathers are crying as the dream's been crucified. America, I show my love for thee with strength and loyalty. America, I show my love for you.